Hey everybody, this is Joe. Thank you for watching my Giga-Texas construction update video. So what exactly are these items being delivered here at Giga-Texas? Well, if you remember on my previous video, just to the south of Megapack 2, all of these items had been delivered and they were being picked up, put onto this yard truck and transported to another part of the site. At the time, I wasn't sure exactly what they were, but then later on in the video, I did see where they were being dropped off, and it's right by the chiller plant for Cortex 2. And thanks to my Patreon, Desi Doolin, we know what these are. In fact, we have seen these before here at Giga-Texas, and they tell a very interesting story that I'd like to share with you. Now, these are Fiber Reinforced Polymer, or FRP beams. They're structural components that are used for construction, specifically with cooling towers for AI data centers. And they excel in harsh, wet, chemical-laden environments. They are corrosion resistant. They're high strength to weight ratio. They have a low maintenance and longevity. Thermal insulation. They also have design flexibility and modularity, and they have other benefits such as fire retardant and also resistant to biological growth. We've also seen these here at Giga-Texas before, particularly down on the southeast corner of the main factory with the cooling plant for Cortex 1. Going back into the archives when this cooling plant was under construction, we can see how they did it. They had this raised concrete base divided into 6 basic sections. They used the FRP beams for the superstructure for the fan units that we see today. And this is an inset image which gives you an idea of what that looked like. Now we can use this as comparison to what's going on at Cortex 2's chiller plant. At this stage of construction, we can see the FRP beams on the ground. The 6 segments, I've highlighted one in red. They're about 60 to 80 feet in length on each side. Total area of about 8,000 to 12,000 square feet. That's about 18 to 24 meters wide on each side and about 750 to 1,100 square meters. And that's important because we can compare that to what's going on up at the chiller plant for Cortex 2. And this image shows what that looks like. I've highlighted that one square in red again, and it also has approximately the same dimensions. And this is showing 6 segments for this part of the chiller plant. And we happen to know that there is an expansion duplicating this, maybe mirror imaging, if you will, a little bit farther to the north on the side of Cortex 2. It will most likely also have 6 base segments. So that means that there may be a total of a minimum of 12 fans. That gives you the idea that the cooling capacity for Cortex 2 is going to be substantially more than Cortex 1. And of course, coupling that with the large size of all of the transformers, the electrical boxes, the connections, and potentially another megapack on the southwest corner and along the entire west side of Cortex 2 really gives us an idea of the capacity and the capability of what's going to be happening here at Cortex 2 once this facility becomes operational, probably late summer of this year. And thanks to Peter Diamond's recent interview with Elon Musk, you don't have to take it from me. Let's hear what Elon Musk has to say.
Cortex 1 was the third largest training cluster in the world.
Yeah.
For doing coherent training.
You're falling behind.
Well, we have Cortex 2 that's being built out.
Yeah.
That'll be half a gigawatt and operational middle of next year.
So I hope that you found this review interesting and informative, and it gives you a little bit of an insight based on some deliveries of FRP beams that we saw at the site on my previous video. So with that, let's get into the drone, fly around, and see what Giga-Texas looks like today. If you would like to support my efforts, please consider using these links, which will be in the video description. If you are interested in Tesla products, you can help yourself and support me by using my referral code. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons on my YouTube video, as this helps as well. Thank you. My drones are ready and raring to go. Let's go flying over Giga-Texas. Well, what a beautiful morning to be flying here at Giga-Texas. We're starting off on the east side, looking back to the west in downtown Austin, moving our way over to the battery cathode plant complex of structures, which includes Cortex 2 and the die shop. Stopping here first at the crash test facility. As we've been seeing in the last couple of days, there's this construction site to the south of the actual facility itself. Not really any change over the last 2 days, but it does look like moisture barriers being spread around the perimeter. We'll probably see some rebar through there and hopefully figure out what that is. At the end of the crash test facility, we can see the crash test wall underneath that new end cap on the top of the structure. And we see also, I think, 16 of these Cybercabs, which are the production version of the Cybercab that has been used for crash testing. And the trailers have a lot of the Cybercab parts in them as well. Looking past the wade pit up by the cell testing lab on the right, we can tell that the transformers are probably going to get ready to start moving here soon since there is a crane nearby. This gives you an idea of how many more are yet to be installed along the west side of Cortex 2 as they continue to build out the electrical capabilities for that new facility. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Here, the northeast side, looking up at the rental equipment lot, we can tell that there is earthwork continuing yet again in this one large area. They're filling up the dump trucks and they're moving it down to other parts of the site. And we can also see a lot of the broken up concrete. This pipe segment at the bottom center of the screen, which is one of the original last items from the baghouse plant, which is now where the electrical switchyard is located. And it's kind of interesting just to keep seeing that periodically because it reminds me of the early days here at Giga-Texas. As we proceed back towards the kind of structures of this complex, we're going to pass the battery cathode plant and die shop and stop here at the north end of Cortex 2. Wanted to show you the work that is being done here. Some of the manifolds, pipe segments that were on the yard trucks have been moved inside, and where those used to be has been this large trench with the water pipe, this blue pipe, extending over to the west side where we saw the initial excavation work on my previous video, all the way to here. We see more excavation work, concrete manhole covers, and the green pipe being installed through this section. A great view along here with all of the materials, the trailers, connexes. The new trailer has been arrived here as well, and just a lot more of the materials. As we pass over some more of the trench work, I wanted to show you the forms, some of the work that's being done to prepare for this part 2 of the chiller plant, including all of the rebar cages that are being fashioned, the large rebar structures next to the wall, the raised ground area, some of the forms that are being placed on the top, getting ready for the walls, and of course the large rebar structure that's being put around the perimeter. This is going to be just like the walls that we see in part 1 at the top of the screen, and it'll be 2 major sections of the Cortex 2's chiller plant, as we discussed in the video intro earlier on the start of this video. We can also see a lot more work with workers here at the south end getting ready to put more of the rebar into those trenches. Speaking of which, a long trench here next to the die shop with some black pipe being put in, and next to the slab with the chiller plant, we have all this electronic equipment. Now, in the intro, we talked about the FRP beams, and they are not only arriving at the site, but they're being erected here very rapidly. This is going to form the enclosure or the structure that will be for the cooling system, and the fans will be up on top of this. And we talked a lot about why they use the FRP beams in the video intro, and it seemed like it was pretty timely to talk about that because of the speed that this is being assembled. And right now it looks like 4 of those 6 large squares has the FRP beams being assembled right now. The other 2 will happen in rapid succession. We can also get a good sense of the kind of manifold structures here next to the wall with some of the large pipes, and how they kind of turn down and go subterranean through this particular area. Also, more trenching on this south side. Looks like maybe electrical conduit in this particular trench at the center of the screen where they're spraying down the water. And we can see some more of that conduit with risers next to those connexes right on the side of the building. Great view back to the north along this side where you can see the two parts of the cooling plant or the chiller plant being installed. I'm going to stay up at a little bit higher altitude here, fly along this south end, and we'll reposition to take a look at what's going on with the electrical systems. Now here we can get a good view with the zoom in of those transformers installed so far with the electrical systems. All of these low-level screw-type piers, I believe, are going to be for a large megapack, and it's going to extend all the way along this side of the building. And we see some more deliveries underway here next to the crane. Now, thanks to Peter Diamond's interview, we know that Cortex 2 is going to be by itself 500 megawatts of energy requirements, and that explains why we are seeing just so much of these transformers, the extent of this construction all along this entire west side, with more of this trench work underway to extend that even more. We saw all of the transformers waiting to be installed along this section, and of course with I believe is going to be yet another large megapack. That all just really shows you the power and the energy consumption that's going to happen here at Cortex 2. I'll bring the drone up to a higher altitude here on the north side, kind of pan around to the south, just to give you a good overall view here of what is going on the west side and how it continues to transform. Of course, trenching at the bottom of the screen with more of the pipes, the water detention pond, and over here at the electrical switchyard expansion, there are some big developments that I want to go over today. First, just look at the overall size of this expansion and the total size of the switchyard. On the right is the original switchyard, and now here is what's becoming a mirror image. There are a few detail differences, and you can tell with some of the slabs here on the ground with some of the steelwork being installed. More steel pipes and other items have been moved over to this part of the site. We see some more erection happening here with disconnects being installed right now. And the big news is excavation for the third large transformer base and catch basin. You can see that right here. And they're starting to work on the second one. So that suggests that we may see that second transformer arriving very soon. Of course, with the third one, that'll be repeated one more time. And if you look up at the center top of the screen, you can see what that's going to look like when this is all completed. So we fly over these control trailers and the underground vaults. This is that connecting tunnel with a lot more cabling being installed at the base. We see the workers getting ready to start work here today. And this is going to continue to connect the two so that it becomes one large system. Here is Megapack 2, also known as the Giga-Texas Data Center Battery Electric Storage System. And this is what this whole area looks like today. This is the FRP, the Fiber Reinforced Polymer beams that we saw being delivered on my previous video. This is what's headed over to Cortex 2 chiller plants to build out that superstructure for the fans. You can tell that there's a lot more ready to be installed over the next few weeks. I'm going to come up over the power lines and back down over Tesla Road and show you some very interesting developments here on the north end of the factory. Now, as we fly over the casting, handling, and sorting lot, you see the Cybertruck busy pulling more of these rack systems with the castings as Cybertruck production has resumed today along with the Model Y. This shows you the excavation work is pretty much done here on this section near the walkway. But the big news here on the north side of the factory near plastics, which is where we are flying over right now, is this item, which was spotted on my previous video. It was actually doors for the Cybercab, but here we can see the quarter panels and the front fenders. These are forms or bucks that are used for manufacturing those plastic panels, and it gives the material the form as it's being produced. This gives you a really good close-up view of what these look like and how those racking systems are kind of set up. We see more of the racks on the right, and those are probably for other parts of the Cybercabs, and a lot more racking systems waiting for their turn to be used. So this is another great sign that the production capacity and preparation for a Cybercab is really coming along on the inside of the factory. I'm going to bring the drone up a little higher, fly over the power lines once again, and come back down. We'll take a quick look using the morning light into the melt center. And here we'll see more of the Cybercab castings on the ground, all three variants of those castings, as along with more of the Model Ys coming into view here. On the ground is the Cybercabs, in the racks are the Model Ys, and you can see what the recycling operation in that melt plant looks like. As we continue to keep the zoom in and fly to the south, get a good sense of the number of castings, and also by that kind of teal item connecting into the wall, all of the materials and the Cybercab castings that were there have been moved away. As we get closer to the secondary main entrance and that construction entrance, see more materials have been laid out here near that entrance. And we'll see some more up on that platform at the top of the screen momentarily. But I did notice that a lot of Model Y standards have been produced and moved over here to the temporary lot. This is a great close-in view of what these look like. Why these are here, it's hard to say for sure. They have used this in the past for extra capacity of the space for production while they have operations going on at the West Outbound Center, or the outbound lot. I'm not sure why this has changed for today, but it is an interesting thing to note. Here's a great view of the staging yard with the kind of drainage ditch and more work being done here near the intersection of Robotic Avenue and Electric Lane. And I'm going to come back in and give you a closer view of what's going on. You can see the steel corrugated pipe that's being prepared to go underneath Robotic Avenue and connect over to the other excavation to help with that drainage. And then this is going to connect into the 4 corrugated steel pipes right by River Road. And I'll show you that momentarily. But this is all part of the massive drainage system for Giga-Texas. This is what the cleared land looks like today. They are continuing to work on the grade to flatten it out all throughout this entire site. And where all the materials are on the bottom right, I think that's going to have to be moved here momentarily. I wanted to see where this roadway kind of extends that you can see on the bottom of the screen. Get a good idea where that is. Some of the dirt that is being excavated at that far northeast is headed this way here today as well. So as I continue to pull away, a great view of the east support facility, this whole east side with that east warehouse on wheels, and this construction zone. Coming into view at the bottom left is that 4 pipe manifold that now has had most of the dirt covered over it, and this is what's going to connect into that drainage channel with the green kind of grass spray, and that's where those other pipes are being installed. Great view here of the raised berm and where River Road is going to be extended through this section, and a nice view of the cooling plant for Cortex 1. And with the fiber reinforced polymer beams that we talked about in the intro, also some of the imagery that I used during the construction of this can give you an idea of what we can expect on a slightly different level as far as the height over at Cortex 2. Here's some of those deliveries next to stamping. Some more items being delivered in those Conestoga or kind of accordion type trucks. And then here is the big news where all of the materials are being brought in for the Cybercab production line, being either unpacked or moved onto the platform and on the inside. And there's a lot of that material stored here next to the receiving doors. And as we arrive back over towards this kind of tall loading dock and the secondary main entrance. I'm going to fly back over to the roof, and we're going to resume on the west side of the main factory. As we get closer to the 4680 cell recycle portion of the kind of apron here, I notice this kind of accordion or Conestoga truck trailer. Did not get a chance to see what they were unloading, but it's an interesting location for them to be. As we continue to fly to the south, I wanted to show you what's going on with this excavation work for some of these pipes connecting the factory up to the new pipes on the berm. You can see a sheet pile is, or sheet steel is being maneuvered for the trench. And you see the concrete manhole covers, also the trench boxes. And as they continue to do the work here, you can tell where the connections are at the bottom left of the screen. And what's interesting at the bottom of this screen here of this trench box is you can see that pipe is what they're connecting it to. And that pipe actually runs uphill into the berm. And that is going to be interesting to make sure that they have the proper water pressure to prevent backflow, which is one of the issues that they've had over the last several years. As we arrive to the exit point for the Model Ys, I wanted to show you that definitely production has resumed, and also that changed policy, or at least the process that they use, where the workers drive it down the ramp and then the cars drive themselves over to the end of line facility on the west side. We saw this before the break. I didn't know if that was caused by just the operations at that time getting ready for the holidays, or if they were doing some work on the inside, but it seems to be continued now. We also see a recycling truck bringing more of those aluminum wheels for the melt center, and another truck bringing some additional materials for the melt center as well. But this gives you kind of an idea of the number of vehicles that are exiting the factory right now. And even though this is sped up in real time, it was maybe 4 or 5 per minute, at least at the time that I was flying. So that's a pretty good clip for production. As we continue to fly to the south, I'm going to follow along that red Model Y that we saw exiting the factory, and we'll follow it over to the south caisson, just to give you an idea of what it's like for the route that these vehicles drive autonomously. So that was kind of fun following the vehicle. We're going to stop here at this excavation near the caisson to show you what is going on at the base here. You can see the spreader bars and the sheet piles. With that ladder and the worker, this gives you a really good sense of how deep it is. And of course, that concrete vault that's been assembled that's quite tall. It has some access doors, and the caisson off to the left. So as I pull away, this gives you an overall view of what this part of the site looks like. And I'll pan to the left to show you where this caisson is having these pipes with those kind of metal pieces around the pipes. They're being pushed through the tunnel that connects over to that large pit on the right-hand side of the screen. And those kind of metal braces around the pipes hold that in the concrete liners for the tunnel. But here's a great overall view of all of this work here in the southwest corner of the main site and how it looks today. Now we resumed on the other side of the highway. As I pull away, a nice view of all of the areas that we visited earlier in the flight. And now I want to take a look at what's going on at this material staging yard, where we are going to see more deliveries of production equipment happening today. They're coming in these covered trailers. They're being pulled out with the telehandlers, and set onto the ground here as this number of equipment and packaged items continues to grow in overall quantity. And by looking at the red painted items plus some of the other items, it's pretty clear that this is more production line equipment. And, in Tesla fashion, since they use the agile project management and production management of the factory, it's very likely that they are doing the test productions of the Cybercab while they are also assembling more of the production line. And I also just want to point out that the production line, if you want to call it that, for the Cybercab is not just located in one part of the factory. It extends throughout the entire factory, as everything from structural packs to castings to the plastics and much more is all being modified and prepared for that production. As we fly over the power lines, great view of downtown Austin in the top of the screen, and a good view of some of these materials and supplies that are being stored in various material staging yards here. As we pass the fence, we get into this part, which has been items that we've seen before going over to the battery cell portion of the factory. Some of this has been here for some time, especially these cabinets, and we see some of the crates as well. So I'm not sure when those are going to be moved in, but something I keep watching. Now, this is the supercharger workshop. You can see a lot of superchargers and posts onto the left in the cabinets. Not much work going on inside of the workshop itself, but we can see these portable power units with power walls at the bottom of the screen next to the solar panels, and a lot more of the superchargers at the top part of the screen. In this section with all of these pipes and these blue segments, this was used for the cooling plant commissioning, and I think that they've kept this here so that they can do the same thing with the chiller plants for Cortex 2 as that time gets closer. So maybe we'll see those items being used in a couple of months. All of these transformers are still stockpiled here. I'm not sure what the exact number is, but it looks like it's probably close to about 80 to 100. And what the disposition of those are, still not really sure. But they have been moved off-site rather than being used on-site. Here's a great view of the outbound lot showing how it's starting to fill up because of production. Also, the transports are busy again. There's a good mix of Model Ys, also Cybertrucks, and the work up here next to the superchargers and this kind of expansion lot right now. This is really the first full production day of the year. Employees started coming back on Monday, came back in large quantities on Tuesday, and today we're starting to see that the production lines are ramped back up and ready to go. Now, I wanted to kind of show you this. The Cybertruck, it came out of the Cyber Tunnel, and another red Model Y. I thought it might be fun just to follow it along its path as they go over the rumble strips and choose the lanes that are appropriate for the end of line and get ready to be processed through the facility. So we'll follow this along and we'll resume on the north side. That was a quick kind of a follow along and see how the autonomous drive goes from the factory all the way over to end of line. Now, next to the direct delivery center with the racetrack and the Tesla letters, you can see these large blocks. They were being placed on my previous video. Looks like most of that work is now completed, and they are doing some additional trenching near where the semi has its mega charger. And just pull back and show you what this entire operations looks like today. It appears that maybe some more direct deliveries are being planned with those vehicles in that angled parking lot next to the facility. And if that's the case, that would be really neat. Maybe one day, if you order a Model Y or maybe a Cybertruck, you might be able to pick one up here at the factory as well. So I'm going to bring the drone up to a higher altitude. We'll fly back to the north, looking to the south, just to give you a good view of the West Support facility on the right-hand side of the highway and the main factory on the left, and all of the other items that we were able to see today. So I hope that you found all of this informative and helpful, and it's great to see production resuming again. As always, thank you very much for watching. Have a great day.